Man Ray, When Objects Dream is a fascinating exhibition about one of the most inventive artists of the 20th century. It focuses very purposefully on Man Ray's rayographs. The Met is an outstanding place for this exhibition. It's a collaboration between our modern and contemporary department and our photography department. And it shows a truly scholarly, scientific institution coming at it from all disciplines. It's a unique opportunity to understand Man Ray's work and really participate in one of the pivotal moments of art making and art history in the 20th century. And now it's my pleasure to present you the tour of Man Ray When Objects Dream.
Man Ray is an artist who looms large. You often think about singular works, an iron with tacks in it, or a famous photograph of a woman's back with sound holes. He's part of our visual culture. He's part of our popular culture. He's definitely part of our consciousness.
Man Ray really was one of the first multi-hyphenate artists. He worked in lots of different media, including photography, painting, sculpture, assemblages, film. And we're bringing all of these works together and giving people the ability to see everything that he was doing simultaneously.
But focusing on the rayograph to understand what's beyond that exposure, what's really involved in making that image. And that kind of spirit of pushing at boundaries and experimentation, I think, is the thing that we tried to bring out. And I think it's part of the reason why we came to see the rayograph as this wonderful kind of through line. I'm Stephanie D'Alessandro.
And I'm Stephen Pinson.
We are co-curators of Man Ray When Objects Dream. This exhibition gathers together works made by Man Ray between 1914 and 1929 that chart his development of this wonderful technique called the rayograph, probably what is his most groundbreaking work.
The rayograph was not really a new technique. In fact, it's one of the oldest techniques in the history of photography. At its most basic, putting an object on a piece of light-sensitive paper and exposing it to light, and you get an image.
But I think one of the things that feels so important about Man Ray was that he was a very early artist to say, this medium I'm working in isn't still doing it for me. He just kept experimenting.
One thing that we really wanted to take on together is how do we approach a well-known artist with fresh eyes and with a fresh approach. And the way that we decided to do that was to look specifically at this formative period from the 1910s through the 1920s. We realized that looking at the rayograph was a way for us to link the works that he does in this period across media. We wanted to begin at the point where most people would have first encountered the rayograph.
Champs de l'Essieu is an album of rayographs that Man Ray made. It was published in 1922 in Paris.
Man Ray describes this new technique as being the climax of the things that he's been working on or been searching the last 10 years.
But the mystery of these things, right? The more you stare at them, the more they're completely mysterious, you know? You might recognize like, oh, this seems like a toy gun and a key, but how is it that that's gray, right? And how come that's white? The space is as important and as strong. Light and shadow have this kind of equal play.
This is the way, of course, that people first saw them in 1922, but then we step back in time and we discover with Man Ray the various steps that led to this moment.
This is a gallery that shows Man Ray's experimentation beyond the flat plane of painting or collage making. There are paintings in this space. There are sculptures that are not anything like a kind of traditional sculpture. There are other works on paper that he tries a kind of painting, but without a brush. This is a moment where Man Ray is trying everything. Many of the objects that Man Ray initially was inspired by were things that were found not so far away from his studio. He really takes anything at hand to try a new experiment.
It's also the moment right after he's picked up the camera for the first time, and he very quickly then sees that the camera actually transforms things, so that when you look at a photograph of something, you see things that you might not see when you're looking with your own eyes at that object in real life. And so what he does is begins to take very common everyday objects, like an egg beater, for example, and hangs it on the wall, lights it dramatically, and all of a sudden you get these very dramatic shadows, and it transforms into this kind of anthropomorphized object, which he in fact calls l'homme, or man. And then he decides to make a companion piece, which he calls initially la femme, or woman. The assemblage is taken apart, and it's the photograph itself that is elevated to a work of art.
And what I also love about these works are, again, just like finding trash and elevating it to become art. Photography at this point is so contested, right? There's almost at the same time people having disputes about, can photography be art? And he takes already what is in dispute, that an egg beater could be lifted up and called art, and he photographs it. And now he's making it doubly contested.
And eventually he then takes the camera away from his photographic process to make the rayograph. So there's a progression which leads eventually to the rayograph.
This wonderful presentation of about 60 rayographs here that we've brought from many places in the United States and across Europe is the heart of our exhibition and the heart of our research. We move from an area with white walls and open space and lots of sense of liveliness and experimentation and lots of different media to a place that is quieter with black walls, paced in a certain way, which we hope will let our visitors take some time to really look at these works in a very quiet, slow way, and to see how some of those techniques seen in other galleries play into some of Man Ray's early experiments with the rayograph. Remember, the rayograph is something that he made by mistake when he was trying to print some other things and discovered a piece of extra paper in his developing tray and grabbed whatever was at hand and placed it on and flashed the light. But from that, we have these wonderful works, which are anything but a quick exposure. But if you think about a rayograph, the brightest color will be the thing that is not exposed to light, right? It's the thing that would be, let's say, white. And the thing that's black is the thing that is exposed fully to light.
Right.
But the gradation in this work, the beautiful little edge that's white and everything else that's gray, how he did that is a marvel. And that's what makes these things, from my modernist eye, I find them so beautiful and they're so full of skill.
But there's also pleasure in just seeing this visual mystery and this marvelous quality that they have, using, of course, objects that allow more light through them, so you get these beautiful gradations of grays and whites. You could move objects between multiple exposures or place objects during the second exposure. All of these things were techniques that Man Ray used. And these large works are technical marvels in and of
Absolutely.
themselves. Just considering the size of the paper that he's using at the time in the 1920s, but just also they're so breathtakingly beautiful. Here we have two examples of him using the banjo as the object that is the subject of the rayographs themselves.
I think it's also a great opportunity to show his continuing push at a motif. I mean, we know from reading his journals that he was fascinated with music and the banjo,
player himself.
Indeed. So he had that also physical experience of that object, right? But he didn't just make one and say, oh, that's good. He kept pushing. And still to this day, the wonderful mystery in these works, how that was made is wonderfully fascinating, and it makes it so beautiful, this elegant gesture.
It was so exciting for us to discover these rayographs and other works of art alongside curators and conservators from collections and other institutions. And for us, it was also a process of building the narrative, seeing connections, and putting pieces of the puzzle together.
In 1922, he made as many as 100 rayographs, we think, and probably no paintings. He tells his great supporter, Ferdinand Hallowell, he's given up the sticky medium of paint. But then slowly, in 1923, he picks up a brush again. And so this is a space that Stephen and I were so excited to put together, bringing together a number of small paintings like this wonderful one that show Man Ray painting again, not with a brush, but with a palette knife. And we think bringing his experience of making rayographs back to a support and using oil paint.
Remember when we first saw these works, we realized right away that there were similarities. We said, oh my gosh, it's like a painted rayograph. And then when we went to Bowdoin to see this specific painting, it was the first time I think that we actually were able to put the painting side by side with one of his rayographs.
And it's so exciting because we just came to see so many connections.
Many of these paintings, of course, were known before, but they're not really discussed very much in the literature and somewhat overlooked perhaps. Then bringing them together side by side so that people can see the formal similarities.
The way they're constructed in both cases.
Exactly. And many of them probably haven't been shown since 1926 when they were first exhibited.
I think one thing that's also really nice is the other side of the space, we show Man Ray working toward the rayograph. And a lot of the Paris side of the show, we see the effect of the rayograph on Man Ray's other work. So in this case, it's that sticky medium of paint that he goes back to, re-energized. And then even in things like photography, the rayograph is important for him. So the wonderful Violon d'Ancre is a case where he makes this wonderful photograph, but the technique of the rayograph helps to sort of give it an extra kind of magical quality.
He calls it a photorayograph, where he actually creates the sound holes on his partner and muse's Kiki de Montparnasse, Alice Prin's body, by using the rayograph technique to create those shapes on her torso. One of his great masterpieces.
The Mona Lisa of the show.
Fast forward to 1929, it's this moment when Lee Miller, this American model, arrives in Paris. She says that she is tired of being a picture, she wants to make pictures. So she seeks Man Ray out to learn photography from him. He takes her on as an apprentice, which he has done several times before with other photographers. And she very quickly becomes not just his apprentice, but his partner in the studio, and then his romantic partner as well. And together they work on this technique that is now referred to as solarization. And what it's most known for today, and rightly so, is this beautiful contour line that you see either around the subjects or even around specific body parts.
I love these pictures because they're so mysterious and so beautiful. That halo line just gives this kind of magical quality to these works. And at the same time, they're still objects. That halo line also makes them separated from the surface. It's kind of a little bit different than he had been thinking about that flat plane for so long, right? This beautiful work, for example, of this performer.
Jean-Louis Barrault, yes, who's an actor.
Is completely on this white background and then this very strange halo that almost looks like he's been cut out of a photograph and pasted on.
After so many years of working without a camera as his main creative outlet, of course he's making portraits and fashion work with a camera, but his sort of main private experience is these rayographs without a camera. But here he returns to the darkroom with Lee Miller, and this, in effect, sort of replaces the rayograph.
But what's most interesting is he does return to the rayograph when he finishes the Champs Delicieux portfolio and cancels it out. And visitors will be able to see this very special work in the show that was from 1959, dedicated to Tristan Tzara, with Tzara's name also on it, now his great collaborator.
I think it was important for us to end at this moment of reflection. So there's also some synchronicity between the opening of the exhibition and the closing of the exhibition. A lot of people ask the question, why Man Ray? Why today? I think it speaks to younger people, perhaps, because it's beyond genre in a way. And so many artists today approach their work in a similar spirit. It's not about making one thing and one medium. It's about sort of this overall approach to the work.
We live in a world that's full of images, and we can be so fooled by them. and we can be also told how to read them and how to react to them. And we need to remember that objects can trick us and that there's more to the story than meets the eye. And I think that Man Ray reminds us of the possibility of an image.